Do you think the anger in the world is way higher than it used to be? Or it's like all these dynamics from social media we were talking about
I think the
earlier?
dynamics in social media have certainly exacerbated anger in some people, but I think anger in the world is just a part of frustration, inequality, problems that are so clear but are not solved, and all the issues that people have. I mean, it's not a coincidence that a lot of the mass violence that you're seeing in this country, mass looting and all these different things, are being done by poor people.
Do you think AGI will be an equalizing force for the world or further inequality?
I think it depends on how it's implemented. My concern is, again, what we were talking about before with some sort of a neural interface, that it will increase your ability to be productive to a point where you can control resources so much more than anyone else. And you will be able to advance your economic portfolio and your influence in the world through that, your amount of power that you can acquire. It will, before the other people can get involved, because I would imagine financially it'll be like cell phones. In the beginning, you remember when the movie Wall Street, when he had that big brick
Oh yeah,
cell phone? It's like, look at him, he's out there on the beach with a phone. That was crazy. No one had one of those things back then, and they were so rare. I got one in 1994 when I first moved to California, and I thought I was living in the fucking
giant
future.
thing.
No, it was a Motorola StarTAC.
That was a cool phone.
I actually had one on in my car in 1988. I was one of the first people to get a cell phone. I got one in my car, and it was great because my friend Bill Blumenreich, who runs the Comedy Connection, he would call me because he knew he could get a hold of me. Like if someone got sick or fell out, I could get a gig because he could call me. So I was in my car. I was like, Joe, what are you doing? Do you have a spot tonight? And I'm like, no, I'm open. He's like, fantastic. And so he'd give me gigs. So I got a bunch of gigs through this phone
That's
where
cool.
it kind of paid itself. But I got it just because it was cool. Like I could drive down the street and call people, dude, I'm driving and I'm calling you. Like it was nuts to be able to drive. And I had a little antenna, a little squirrely
I with a little yeah, I
pigtail
remember those.
antenna on my car, on the roof of the car. But now everyone has one. You can go to a third world country and, people in small villages have phones. It's super common. It's everywhere. Essentially more people have phones than don't have phones. There's more phones than there are human beings, which is pretty fucking wild. And I think that initial cost problem, it's going to be prohibitively expensive initially. And the problem is the wealthy people are going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And then the real crazy ones that wind up getting the holes drilled in their head. And if that stuff is effective, maybe it's not, maybe there's problems with generation one, but generation two is better. There's going to be a time where you have to enter into the game. There's going to be a time where you have to sell your stocks. Like, don't wait too long. Hang on there. Go. And once that happens, my concern is that the people that have that will have such a massive advantage over everyone else that the gap between the haves and have-nots will be even further, and it'll be more polarized.
This is something I've changed my mind on. Someone at OpenAI said to me a few years ago, like, you really can't just let some people merge without a plan because it could be such an incredible distortion of power. And we're going to have some sort of societal discussion about this.
Yeah, that seems real. That
I
seems
think
like,
so at this
yeah,
point.
especially if it's as effective as AGI is, or as ChatGPT is. ChatGPT is so amazing. When you enter into it information, you ask it questions, and it can give you answers, and you can ask it to code a website for you, and it does it instantly, and it solves problems that literally you would have to take decades to try to solve, and it gets to it right away.
This is the dumbest it will ever be.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. That's what's crazy. So imagine something like that, but even more advanced, multiple stages of improvement and innovation forward, and then it interfaces directly with the mind, but it only does it with the people that can afford it.
Yeah.
And those people are just regular humans, so they haven't been enhanced. We haven't evolved physically. We still have all the human reward systems in place. We're still basically these territorial primates, and now we have, you just imagine some fucking psychotic billionaire who now gets this implant and decides to just completely hijack our financial systems,
Yep.
acquire all the resources, set into place regulations and influences that only benefit them, and then make sure that they can control it from there on
How
out.
much do you think this actually, though, even requires like a physical implant or like a physical merge versus just some people have access to GPT-7 and can spend a lot on the inference compute for it and some don't?
I think that's going to be very transformative too. But my thought is that once, I mean, we have to think of what are the possibilities of a neural enhancement. And if you think about the human mind and how the human mind interacts with the world, how you interact with language and thoughts and facts, and something that is exponentially more powerful than that, but it also allows you to use the same emotions, the same ego, the same desires and drives, jealousy, lust, hate, anger, all of those things, but with this godlike power. When one person can read minds and other people can't, when one person has a completely accurate forecast of all of the trends in terms of stocks
Yeah.
and resources and commodities, and they can make choices based on those.
I totally see all of that. The only thing I feel a little confused about is, human talking and listening bandwidth or typing and reading bandwidth is not very high. But it's high enough where if you can just say, like, tell me everything that's going to happen in the stock market if I want to go make all the money, what should I do right now? And it goes, and then it just shows you on the screen. Even without a neural interface, you're kind of a lot of the way to the scenario you're describing.
Sure, with stocks.
Or with, like, tell me how to, like, invent some new technology that will change the course of history.
Yeah. Yeah. All those things.
Like, I think what somehow matters is access to massive amounts of computing power, especially like differentially massive amounts, maybe more than the interface itself.
I think that certainly is going to play a massive factor in the amount of power and influence a human being has, having access to that. My concern is that what neural interfaces are going to do is now you're not a human mind interacting with that data. Now you are some massively advanced version of what a human mind is. And it has just profound possibilities that we can't even imagine. We can imagine, but we can't truly conceptualize them because we don't have the context. We don't have that ability and that possibility currently. We can just guess. But when it does get implemented, that you're dealing with a completely different being.
The only true thing is I can say is I don't know.
Yeah.